You can clone PaperRockScissors from scratch, or you can update it by running updates. Update project, and after this, go to session. If you see blue arrows pointing down, click update, and it will update it. Or just clone it from scratch. This was inserted after last lesson and this lesson. What is the rationale? First rationale. I remind how configuration class works. And it is a variant of making dependency injection. Also, new topic, what is listener, and new topic, how to create what is anonymous class and how to create it. So all of this theory in this part. So new topic for today. We have more topics, and it's one of them. So what is configuration? Configuration, it's a marker on top of the class that provides beans. Okay. In your Android course, if you took it, we had a class marked with module, and annotations provides. The same idea. How it works. When system needs to have a bean to inject it somewhere, or you want to inform the system to use specific bean, it will call the method to get the bean. So if you use some bean as object to inject, it definitely needs it. So it will find it and it will inject it. In this case, we don't need to provide it. It is our initiative to provide it. So when project starts, in SpringBoot will scan these folders, like scan packages from the package where we have application class and all packages inside, and it will find configuration. And it will keep notice what kind of bean declarations we have here. Bean on top means this method returns object that should be injectable. It will be used, these objects returned by methods marked by bean will be used in injections into your own objects when you need it, or into into framework. If it is some system class, it will be called and injected for some specific class. For example, filter or listener. This method will be called automatically and injected into framework. So this object will be registered as a listener. Okay. If you don't provide it, it's fine. It won't be injected. So it is kind of optional. What is inside? There is no programming logic inside. It's all prints out. Why did I do it? To demonstrate how session works, one reason. Second reason, to demonstrate how dependency injection works, how listener works. Okay, so it has several reasons, but it will work without it. It's a demo. So it has only printouts in it. In the previous lessons, we learned that we can create a bean, injectable bean, by annotation, session, or component. Session means some business logic, and component means something injectable, some piece, right? Piece of code. You can write annotation on top of the class that makes it injectable. But if you deal with library type, you cannot do it because you cannot really open some class from library and write annotation on top of it. And quite often we need to inject into the framework or into our code some library objects, objects created from library classes. When we do so, we have to use this approach. We need to create a class market configuration with beans. So this is library type. And we want to make it injectable, so we create some return statement that is providing this object. So how this return statement works? It is returning, and we see something like a constructor call. But instead of calling constructor, it looks like constructor call and curly braces after this, like a code of the class put in place. How to understand it? This is not constructor call. It's an instruction to create anonymous class and create object from it. This part is not a constructor. This is interface name. Interfaces do not have constructor. So this is interface name. So if I move mouse, you see, interface, right? We cannot call constructor interface of interface. So this is not calling constructor of interface. It is calling constructor of the class that we created by extending this interface, implementing this interface here. So we create class without a name, so this is why it's called anonymous. By implementing this interface has two methods that we overrode, and we call constructor of that anonymous class. Okay. And this is not specific to Java. It exists in other languages, for example, in C#. You probably saw it, or maybe you didn't see it in C#, and you will see it. So we can create in Java and C# anonymous classes, and it is for one-time use, obviously. If you need to use class only one time, you can create anonymous class and assign it to the variable. It doesn't have to be in return statement. You can assign it to a variable. Okay? Or provide it as a parameter of another function, some function call, method call. Okay? So we can create anonymous class by implementing interface or extending abstract class. So there is a flexibility. Okay. There are definitely some advantage of it. A code is more compact. Disadvantage, it is design it for one-time use. If you want to use it second time, you have to copy-paste the code. So if you want to use second time, you better declare actual class with a name. All right, questions? So we're implementing, in this case, we're implementing HTTP session listener interface by anonymous class, and we call constructor of that anonymous class. Questions? It happens a lot. It happens a lot. So it's not unique to Java. So now this is implementing session listener that will be injected into the framework, so it will be called. When session created and session destroyed. Why did they do it? To have a demo. To have a demo, what is session listener, what is the bean, what is configuration, and what is anonymous class, and how to use anonymous class. I have another bean, which is HTTP session attribute listener, where I overrode attribute edit, attribute remove it, and attribute replace it. What is attribute? It is key value pair. Object and key, name of the object that you put into session. Right? This is how we store data in a session. We covered session in the previous lesson. Questions? So let's see how this magic works. I don't explain code because code is exactly the same, except now I have a separate class which is automatic, which is used by the system. It creates two listeners and it will inject it into framework. And this is separately from my code. I never refer to it in my code, except in this object itself. Okay? So let's run it and see how it behaves. So it will start. Starting. And says, started on port 8080, but session is not created yet. I don't have message session created. Why? Because session is per browser. Nobody talks to it right now, right? When browser sends first request, it will create session for that browser. Okay, so let's see. I go to browser, and when I click localhost 800, this is an output of another program. When I click localhost 880, it is bookmark. Browser will send request to this address. And now if we receive a response, so I see it on the screen. So what we have here, session created is called session ID. Here it is. So it created session object, right? Next, when I call in my controller, here it is, it's default. When I created random choice, I printed it. So computer choice is scissors, so it's printed from here. And then it says set session, set attribute, computer choice, computer choice. So attribute edit, you see, it is from this piece. Attribute edit to this session ID, it is the same session ID. So where does it come from? It comes from this, right? Attribute edit, call it, from session ID, edit attribute, computer choice, name, value scissors. All right. Now let's open another browser. I have Microsoft Edge here. Remember that session is matched by cookie by default, right? And cookie is a browser say. If I open another browser, it will be another session, another cookie. Okay. Here it is. Going to localhost 8080. I want to reload page. It remembers previous CSS from another program. Running on the same localhost 8080, it is, for the browser, it is the same program, right? We use the same host to run different programs. For the browser, it is the same program, so it assumes that CSS is the same, but it's not. So this is why it's misunderstood CSS. Okay? But anyway, before I reload it, let's see what it prints. Input is called. No, it's not the one. Here it is. It starts here. This is still from the other browser. Now you see again, session created, session ID, new ID. It is for different browser. Input is called. Computer choice is ROC. All right. Attribute edit to this session. So it is different session, different computer choice. Okay. Edit attribute ROC. Okay. So for this, computer choice was made scissors. For this, computer choice was made ROC. Okay. So, yeah, okay, I will make my choice scissors here and scissors here. Play. Your choice scissors, computer choice ROC. Remember that for second was ROC, for this was scissors. Your choice scissors, computer choice scissors. So they play independently, right? Because data is stored in a session. Session is matched by session ID cookie, and object on the server side, a session has own ID, so it makes the match. Okay. In session listener, it is maybe useful in more complicated code, but in this code, it's just illustration. Right. So this is example of several topics: anonymous class, session listener, and again, we saw how it works. Session attributes work. Questions? One thing that I want to mention is this one. You see, it is CSS deal is not reloaded. To make it clear, we run different programs on the same address, localhost 8080. And different programs, in my case, may have the same file, the same name of the file, main.css. is stored in CSS folder. For the browser, this file is located at the same address, so browser assumes it is the same file. So browser does not send request to refresh this file. It is just use whatever file is available in local copy. Okay. In order to force refresh, the same applies to images. In order to force refresh, we need to press Ctrl-Shift-R, and now it is forced. So now if I go to play again, it shows right. Okay. You will always encounter it because it's kind of unavoidable. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It never happens in real-life scenario because we don't have two web addresses are unique by definition, right? It will never happen in real-life scenario unless website is updated, right? You've re-uploaded CSS there. This would happen. Okay. So questions? So this was an example of session with a listener. Again, listener, in this case, it's for demo. It doesn't do anything except printing logs.